There are three things that will absolutely put me off of anyone calling himself an Islamic scholar. But before we get into those specifics, we should talk a little bit about what Islamic scholarship actually is. Islam is a multi-dimensional approach to life. It's a kind of developmental blueprint that blends metaphysics with spirituality and legalism. And our understanding of Islam and Islamic practice is informed by a primary text, that of the Quran, believed by Muslims to be the word of God revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of God be upon him, and a secondary collection of the sayings and practices, actions, traditions, or what we call hadith of the prophets and the men and women around him. That was the earliest generation of believers. And so it's commonly understood that if anyone would have an understanding of how to properly live one's faith, it would be them. And all of those sayings and practices were compiled over the centuries into collections. And the narrations within those collections are independently graded. Some of them are understood to be patently false, others more than likely true, and then everything sort of in between. And that is where the scholars of Islam come in. They have spent time digging into those source materials, as well as the commentaries, the rulings, and the opinions of other scholars throughout Islamic history across various times and places. Islamic scholarship is a living, breathing, dynamic tradition, and one that we are constantly revisiting with the help of Muslim scholars to help us live our faith in our evolving context. They play a critical role. But at the end of the day, these are fallible men and women. We're not Catholics. These aren't religious intermediaries between us and God. For the Muslim, that is an immediate and intimate relationship. But like any relationship, sometimes you need outside assistance to help you get to the next level, which is why we need to be careful about who we're calling a scholar. Now, the conventional measures of scholarship involve a consideration of where and with whom the scholar studied and what their particular area of emphasis may have been. And because we're talking about religious leadership, we also need to make a study of this person's character. We never really know what's going on in a person's heart, and we don't know what happens behind closed doors. And I don't think it matters. As long as nobody's getting hurt, we're all human beings. We're all fallible. The idea is that that public-facing side of the religious scholar should hold up to scrutiny. And the first thing that I'm looking at is our scholar overweight. I gotta be careful. I'm not talking about the lay public. I am talking about religious leadership. Also, I do want to give some grace to the mothers among that class because it takes a few years after giving birth for the body to get reconfigured. But that needs to be the trajectory because what the religious scholar needs to exemplify is the balance that we are all looking to achieve in our lives. That's their role in the community. Any way you slice it, a fat body is an indication of a lack of discipline, a lack of impulse control, excess, gluttony, to the point where the body has become physically distorted. It is a red flag. What can this person teach me about living a balanced life? Gluttony is a huge spiritual problem. It's an appetite out of control. And if my spiritual teacher cannot rein that in, what hope do I have as his student? What hope? My sincere advice, if you are obese and trying to teach other people how to live a religious life, just stop. Just stop, get yourself under control, and then we'll be happy to listen to what you have to say. You become a sort of proof of concept at that point, and I, for one, am much more ready to listen. I want to transform. And you, that formerly obese religious scholar, you've done so. Now you are an example. You are a person to follow. You've hacked the code. Congratulations, let me on board that train. And the next thing, number 2, if our scholar in question is active on social media, I'm out. And the reason for that is super simple. There is a maxim within our tradition. The prevention of harm takes precedence over the attainment of benefit. That is Islam 101. And let me tell you, the jury is in on social media. Is there benefit? Are there good things that have come about through social media? Absolutely. Does it outweigh the harm? There is consensus on this point. Every sociologist of repute will tell you that social media on the whole has been an absolute disaster for society. Polarizing and addictive, it destroys our self-esteem and it corrodes our intellect, funneling us into these ideological echo chambers that absolutely destroy society and community. Social cohesion is completely undermined. We are lonelier now than we have ever been. Anxiety and depression are through the roof, and all of this while our data is being mined so that it can be aggregated and products can be developed and sold back to us through the manipulation of that data to fix the very problems that are fomented by this medium. Now, how could anybody, even superficially grounded in our religious tradition, invested in this maxim of the prevention of harm taking precedence over the attainment of benefit? How could anybody with that awareness invest in such a thing? Yeah, so those people are off my list. And the last thing, and this is a little tougher to suss out because it's not as immediately apparent, but here's the question. Here's the question you want to ask anybody that you are interested in taking the finer points of religious practice from. Ask them, how many times a year do you sleep outside? How many times a year do you do that? Because if it's less than 4, that's one night for each season. If it's less than 4, probably a good idea to stay away from that person. Why do I say that? Because in the Quran, God says, have you not seen that God created the heavens and the earth in truth? In Arabic, bil-haq. There is truth. This is the ultimate truth. This is the ultimate teacher of truth. When we look at these trees, we have to understand that what we're looking at is perfect submission. We're not talking about the seesaw where some days your faith is on and some days it's off and some days it's easy and some days it's hard and some days it's clear and other times it's confusing. It is perfect. And you spend time in these places and you absorb that. There's no way to know that except to be out there. Are they immersing themselves in this sublime company? Are they witness to the cycles, to the transitions? Are they able to take the learnings from that to inform their own spiritual practice and radiate that out into the world? If that's not happening, I don't have time for them. I don't think you should either. But what you should have time for is backpacking and other wilderness adventures. Check out our website, dustintribe.com, link in the description. Take a look at our events. I'd love to see you out on the trail because that is where you learn. That is where you learn. That is where you transform.